also think that actually for a beginner, I think knitting in pieces would be easier. And let me explain why. So I know everyone says, oh, you have to start top down. It's so much harder to do bottom up. But it's not true. I don't think it's true. So for me, there are different reasons. Because when you start at the bottom, you usually start with the easier part. You know, you have the ribbing. Okay, maybe you say that's a little bit difficult, but you have to learn to purl and to knit. So you start with the ribbing and then you do stockinette. No increases, no decreases, or very few increases if. So you start with the easiest part. So for me, when you start and you're not proficient, starting with the easier part is best. So bottom up is great. So that's for me one thing. And if you make, so the mistakes start usually in the yoke, in the more difficult part, or if you have a color work, in the more difficult part. So when you start top down and you have a mistake here, which I had in one of my last garments, and I was already at the bottom, I had to frock so much. The other way around, if you start bottom up, you knit stockinette. Hopefully you don't do too many mistakes. And then if you start making mistakes here in your yoke, you don't have that much to undo. So I think that's also a big advantage, not only for beginner knitters, but for anyone. So I think that it's really worthwhile to start bottom up, especially if you start a beginner. Also, I don't know, I mean, right now I've been knitting only in one pieces. Even garments that were in pieces originally, I rewrote to make them go in one pieces. And while I understand, I really hate these long pieces of in the rounds where you knit and knit and knit and knit. And I think if you're a beginner, that's very frustrating. I remember even when I was a beginner doing it in pieces, so you have the front, the back, each sleeve, you know, that would take time, and I was always happy when I got at the end of one part. So for me, if you're a beginner, that's definitely something I would start with.